Lich King. This fight has a lot going on, which makes it very tricky. You will need to be fast on your feet to survive. This is a 2-tank fight. Throughout the whole fight, Lich King will use an ability called Infest, which will do damage and add a debuff. The debuff will do increasing shadow damage until the target is healed above 90% HP. I strongly recommend pre-casting shields or heals to avoid this from getting out of hand. During phase 1, you will want to position your raid in a triangle with the main tank and melee at one point with the Lich King, your ranged and healers at another point, and your off tank with the adds at the last point. During phase 1, the Lich King will cast an ability called Necrotic Plague, which is a disease that will do massive shadow damage every 5 seconds and jump to a nearby target when it is dispelled or kills its target. If you are hit, you need to run behind the adds on the off tank and get dispelled near the adds, then go back to your spot and continue the fight. This will cause the debuff to bounce around the adds and kill them instead of your raid. The Lich King also gains a buff every time the plague jumps called Plague Siphon, which will increase his damage by 2% each stack. From time to time, the Lich King will summon 3 ghouls. Simply have your off tank pick them up and tank them. They don't have aggro right away until they are finished crawling out of the ground, so be careful of how you pick them up. The Lich King will also summon a Shambling Horror, which will need to be picked up by the off tank. These are the main priority of the off tank in phase 1. Grab all the ghouls and Shambling Horrors that you can. The Shambling Horrors will use an ability called Enrage, which will increase their damage by 200%. Simply stun them or have a hunter remove the Enrage. These Enrages must be stunned or removed to survive. At 70%, the Lich King will run to the middle of the platform and go into his transition phase. During this phase, he will use an ability called Remorseless Winter, which will do heavy frost damage to anyone within 45 yards of him. To avoid this, simply run to the edge of the platform as he is running to the middle and then step far enough away to avoid the attack. Everyone should stay away from the off tank's adds due to the Necrotic Plague debuff bouncing around on the adds. Once all the adds on the tank are dead, they should wait for the dispel and then rejoin the group. The Lich King will also launch frozen spheres at random targets that will cast Ice Burst if they reach their target. This will do frost damage and knock players off the platform, resulting in death. They do not have a lot of health, so one range should take care of them. Lastly, the Lich King will create an ad called Raging Spirit, which will not have an aggro table until a few seconds after spawning. Because of this, you should get away from them and allow the tank to grab them before you do any damage to them. Even if you see your tank attacking them, make sure they are attacking your tank before you DPS it. These adds use an ability called Soul Shriek, which will silence targets in front of them for 5 seconds, so make sure they are faced away from the raid. After the 3rd spirit spawns, the Lich King will end the transition phase by destroying the outer edge of the platform. You will need to get off of it before it breaks. Also, any raging spirits still alive should be grabbed by the off tank and taken away from the raid so they do not silence them. Everyone should be running to the middle of the platform to fight the Lich King where he is standing. There will be one final frozen sphere, so be careful. The Lich King will resume casting Infest and start using some new abilities. The first one is called Soul Reaper and will hit your tank. This does 50% weapon damage and 50,000 shadow damage after 5 seconds and will increase his haste rating by 100% for 5 seconds. Your healers will need to pay extra attention when this happens. The second new ability is that the Lich King will summon a Valkyr that will grab a random target and proceed to throw them off the edge of the platform. You can stun them and slow them, but you need to kill them to stop them. You could only use one type of slow because multiple types can sometimes bug it out, causing no slows to work at all. You should also have a stun rotation planned so you can stun it every time it grabs a player. The best thing you can do is to be as close to the middle as you can so that the distance the Valkyr has to travel is longer. They will always take the most direct route to the edge, so being closer to it only hurts you. The last new ability he will use is called Defile, which will target a random player and cause them to create a black pool underneath them. This black pool will do damage to anyone in it and will grow in size when it does. The bigger the pool is, the more damage it will do. If you fail to get out of these, they will continue to grow until covering the entire platform, resulting in a wipe. The best thing you can do is spread out loosely for these and then get away from the affected player while they run away from the raid to place the pool away from the Lich King. Then simply rejoin the fight. At 40%, the Lich King will go into a second transition phase. You should drag him to the edge of the platform so that when he runs to the middle to cast Remorseless Winter, you are already at the edge to avoid it. The transition phase is the same as the first one, except there are no adds with Necrotic Plague this time, and the Raging Spirits will spawn faster, causing 4 to spawn instead of 3. Simply repeat the transition phase as you did before and prepare for the final phase. When the transition phase ends, everyone should stand on the edge of the platform that is not breaking. Have your off-tank grab any remaining Raging Spirits and face them away from the raid. The Raging Spirits need to die before you attack the Lich King. Once they are dead, resume damage on him. The Lich King will resume casting Infest, Defile, and Soul Reaper. He will also use 2 new abilities. The first one is called Harvest Soul, which will grab a random target and cause heavy shadow damage per second for 6 seconds. If the target is still alive, they will be transported into Frostmourne, where they will need to kill an ad quickly in order to rejoin the fight. The ad will channel a spell called Soul Rip, which needs to be interrupted. If you are a DPS, simply kill the ad. If you are a healer, heal the NPC because he will hit harder the higher his health is. If you are a tank, kill the ad. The Lich King will use this ability at the start of Phase 3 and every 70 seconds afterwards. Anyone who fails to kill the ad in time will die and cause the Lich King to enrage, causing 200% increased damage and increasing his size by 50%. The second new ability he uses summons multiple vile spirits above him, which will charge at a random player, casting Spirit Burst when reaching their target or colliding with someone else. This will cause them to explode, causing massive shadow damage to anyone nearby. The best thing that you can do is when he summons these spirits, run to the other side of the platform to create distance between your raid and the spirits, causing them to chase your raid. Your raid should stack with the tank or behind Lich King so that the spirits go to the same location. You will need someone to soak all of the damage from the spirits colliding with them so that they will take the damage and survive, protecting the raid from the spirits. Paladins can bubble, tanks can use cooldowns, shadow priests can use dispersion, even a well-placed ice block will work. You must remember to watch out for Defile while you are moving around, and also while you are stacking for spirits. A poorly placed Defile will wipe the raid. The best time to use Bloodlust in this fight is during the second transition phase, right after the second spirit is picked up by the tank. Because there is an extra spirit, you will want to kill them quicker. Keep an eye on the Infest timers, make sure you are prepared for Defiles, and communicate with your raid to coordinate and execute each phase, and the loot will be yours.